Welcome to part 5 of our exploration of the Vue JavaScript framework and its use in building web forms. You can see we've covered a number of web form fields. We've got most of them, not all of them yet. I'm going to look at an input field here, and you might be wondering, why am I putting an input field in with the buttons? Well, that's because technically this input field is also a button field. Yes, you can click that button and select files from your local machine. Now I'm going to limit the files we can get from my machine to text files. So let's take a look at what happens. There you go. Yay! So what about using this with Vue though? Well, our input used vModel a lot, so let's try that. Okay, vModel with input type equals file gives an error. vModel cannot be used on file inputs since they are read only. Yeah, you see, vModel likes to write to the value attribute of tags. And that would be a big security flaw. You could visit a web page and some malicious programmer could just automatically upload a file without your knowledge just by visiting a web page. Very bad. So that is not really allowed. But you notice it talks about using the change event. I'll use the input event. And we can grab the event. And the target of that event is going to be this tag, and the value is the value of this tag. So there we go. Now let's try that and see what we get. And I put it into the simple text variable, and simple text variable was used down here in all these fields here. And you can see it gives us fake path, C:\fake path. The web browser really doesn't want you knowing much about the user's machine. You get the file name, and you get, well, maybe you get the contents of the file if you submit the file. Oh, submitting files. Well, let's look into file submission then. Yes. How do we do a file submission? Well, we just grab a couple of buttons so that we can submit, and we'll modify them. They now become submit buttons. There we go. And we don't need the events defined. The events for submit are defined right up here in the form tag. Wow. So now we've got our form submit tag done, and when we click, oh well, it's doing some validation here first. Let's do a refresh here so the validation isn't happening anymore. And well, I suppose everything's passing validation, but nothing else seems to be happening because we haven't told it to do anything. Well, there's actually quite a number of things that have to happen with to understand about form submissions. So we're going to understand that first using a basic HTML form. And this form submits to the localhost port 3000. That's what the 127.0.0.1 is, localhost. And it's got a couple of form fields. It's got name equal the words with a value this and that, and a formula there. And that's what and a whole lot of submit buttons. So if I hit submit button, what's going to happen? It's going to get everything that has a name value pair and submit it to the server. So let's do that. Let's just do this. First button here, input type equals submit, form method get. And what happens? Well, there we are. The URL is got a question mark, words equals that encoded stuff, formula equals that encoded value, method get, and there's nothing in the body. Well, alright, there's more to understand here going on. I mean, why did our web page disappear like that? Well, page reloading is the default behavior of a browser to reload the page. And what does it reload it with? It reloads it with whatever the server returned. Well, here's our little server. It's just a simple Node server, Node Echo server really, running on port 3000. It just collects up whatever it's sent to it, and then it says, okay, we're going to bundle it up as a JSON data. And once that JSON data is bundled up, we just echo it straight back to the user. So that is a fairly simple Node Echo server. And you can see if we go down here and submit using the button, and you notice it doesn't have a type equals submit, it still submits. That's the default behavior. Words equals some encoded information, and formula equals some encoded information. Easy for the computer to read, not so easy for us, but we don't typically need to read that data. Alright, there is many more ways to submit though. We could do as a post, and in post you can encrypt the data in a few different ways. So let's first do a post as an application / x-www-form-urlencoded. And what does that look like? Alright, well, first of all, our URL is just a slash. Method is post. There's our encoding type. And there's our encoding. Words equals, well, encoded values. Formula equals encoded value. That encoding is the exact same thing we did as a get. And yeah, that works just fine. What about the next encoding type? Multipart FormData. Well, let's take a look at that and see what it looks like. Okay, / post. The body is full. Remember, every time we do a post, the body fills up. And again, this is much longer. It's harder, maybe it's computer readable anyways. And that's the important thing, that the computer can read this. Multipart form data is really used if you're submitting files. It won't, in form URL encoding, will not work with files. Okay, so there's one more encoding type we should look at. We're going to look at plain text, or text plain. Here's what it looks like. The body is filled up with words equals this and that. Hey, wait, I could read that. That was easy to read. It's not really all encoded. In fact, that's the whole point of text plain. It's so that it's easy for a human to read. I see this double equals here. Computer might get a little confused there on which equals is valid and which is not. It's meant for a human to read, not really meant for a computer. It can get a little ambiguous at times. And since a human's almost never going to see this data, there's almost no reason I can think of to use text plain. Just forget it exists. Alright, so let's move on to Vue, because that's what this is about, Vue and submitting stuff. And you notice that nothing happens, but we had the default behavior of reloading the page. So now what happens? Well, it's reloading the page when we hit submit now. We got rid of the prevent. The prevent stops the reload from happening. But now nothing is happening. Whoop. Now nothing's... Oh, come on. Oh, I haven't saved my file yet. There we go. Now nothing's happening. Alright, so we have to tell our Vue what to do. So when we submit, we call up a function, and that function, we're going to define it now. There we go. Now that's an event. An event always takes as its first argument the event object itself. And what we want to do is, when you submit something, you want to gather all the data that the form has, all the name value pairs, so that's what we're going to do. And web browsers give us a nice, there we go, FormData. They give us a nice function here called FormData. It goes through and collects up the data. We just have to tell it which form we want. Remember, there's two forms on this field, HTML and our Vue form. Well, the easiest way to do that is just say the event object, and the target of the event object is the form that actually called the event, right down here on submit. There we go. So that will now put all our form data in how we want it. Well, it'll collect the form data together. We may want to massage the data a little bit, change it around before we do any submission. And you can do that. You can see, you can append data, you can delete data, you can go through loops, you can change it however you want before you actually submit it to the server. Well, we're going to be submitting using fetch. There's an Axios library that will work just as well. Or if you want, you can use even older methods, but fetch works today on pretty well everything. So we want to tell it to use the method post. There we go. And the body of our message is going to be form data. Okay, so now we've gotten everything together. We submit. Well, nothing seems to be happening again. Yeah, technically it is happening actually. We're bundling all the data up, submitting it, but when it comes back we don't know what to do with it. We haven't told it what's going on. Well, so let's do that now. When we get our response, then we extract out the JSON data from it, and once we've got the JSON data, then we use that data, and I'm going to use it in an alert box. I know some people might be going, why would you use an alert box? I just don't want to put it into a console, that's all. Just don't want to open it. So I'm using an alert box. And these last arguments are just for formatting, just so it makes it easier to read. Alright, and what you always want to do when you're doing a fetch or anything that's promise related like this, you always want to catch the error. And console.error, and there we go. Just print out whatever the error is to the console. So now we've defined everything we need to do on submit. So let's try it. Let's submit and see what we get. And there we are. We have got our multipart form data submitted. It just did that for us. It just chose the multipart. It's fine. It works great. You might have expected a few more form fields to come back. Well, we didn't. When we were going through defining this form, we didn't define very many actual names. There's only a couple of names actually defined on this form, or a few. Anyways, so it only gets what the name is. But so let us add in a name. First of all, this event isn't very useful for us, so let's just get rid of that event for the input type equals file, and we'll give it a name, and we'll call it text file. Okay, so now let's select the text file that we've got, our nice little text file, and we'll submit it, and there you go. It echoed it right back. And this file, just the contents of it is just notes I made on what to do when making this this little exercise that we're going through right now. So there we go. That pretty well covers everything you're going to want to look at. Oh, well, I should mention you can do multiple files as well. I see no reason to do that right now. You can do that as your own exercise. But at this point, you should be able to produce a form in Vue to do pretty much anything you want. I mean, the formatting can be worked on a bit, but the functionality is there to do a basic form. Well, a fully functional form. We're not done yet, though. Vue can make building forms a little bit easier, and we'll be covering them later. I'll be putting this stuff up on this code up on GitHub for you to explore and work with yourself. And thank you for watching part 5 of our exploration of the Vue JavaScript framework and its building web forms. Bye for now.